still in the East.
And I'm George Woodham out here in the West.
And together we are East-West Audio Body Shop. It was the worst of times. It was the best of times. Well, we're going to talk about audiobooks this week. And we've got a great panel to talk about how you can really manage an audiobook business. We've got great engineer, narrator, and expert on the business. Jeff Kafer will be with us, along with David Wilson, the publisher of Crossroad Press, and a virtual assistant to help you out with organizing your voiceover business for doing audiobooks. Karen Souer, who's been with us before, should be very interesting.
You really need to know how to run the business when you're doing an audiobook. It's a lot to keep straight. So this is a great panel to have if you're interested in delving into audiobooks. I'll have more highlights from the NAMM show. This time I'm going to have footage about the Contour Shuttle Pro and MXL microphones with some of their microphones focused on voiceover. So tune in for that.
And in my tip of the week, we have one on expensive mics versus cheap mics, leading up to my webinar coming up about mic choices. That's East-West Audio Body Shop, 9 o'clock in the East.
And 6 o'clock in the West.
And we'll see you and everybody else in the chat room. We'll see you there.
He is the home voiceover studio engineer to the stars in Los Angeles, California. A Virginia Tech grad whose knowledge of the latest recording gear is second to none. He's a voice actor and the home studio master. Hailing from Buffalo, New York, his home studio skills and knowledge of voiceover recording is unmatched. When Dan and George talk shop, people listen. And the talk continues tonight. Welcome to East-West Audio Body Shop.
This is Jack DeGolia from Henderson, Nevada. Episode 176 of East-West Audio Body Shop is brought to you by Edge Studio, providers of voiceover education, production, and technology. Harlan Hogan's Voiceover Essentials, products hand-picked for voice actors. VoiceZam, a totally unreal demo player for voiceover professionals. The Home Studio Master, get a handle on your personal voiceover studio. And VoiceOver Extra, your one-stop resource for voiceover success.
And now live from his high-tech facility in Santa Monica and his penthouse studio in Buffalo, here are George Whitham and Dan Leonard. Is that correct? Possibly.
Good evening. I'm Dan Leonard in the East.
And I'm George Woodham in the West.
And together we are East-West Audio Body Shop. Good evening, everybody. Boy, you got a great show tonight. For those of us in the Northeast, yeah, there's a foot of snow outside my window here. Although I did see a couple of squirrels out this morning, and they look like otters, slithering across the top of the snow. And I'm like, gee, I thought they hibernated.
Time now to take a look at the news. EWABS News.
All righty, from the snow to Yosemite. Yes. No, we're not talking about Half Dome here, but Mac OS X Yosemite Update 10.10.2 was finally released last Tuesday. And if you're really burning to use the latest iOS or OS, it's probably safe to make the jump after you back up your Mac first. Now, George is installing it on his MacBook Air today to put it through its paces, and of course, he'll install it on all our EWABS production equipment. It must be working because I did it all yesterday, and everything seems to be working okay. Little tiny weird stuff here and there, but for the most part, it seems to be working.
I'm so glad to hear that because, yeah, I'm never the one to leap first, but, I like to tell everybody, wait for a couple of updates. Let them debug the debug, and then, and then jump in. But I'll always back up first.
Yeah. Well, the thing about Macs is when you do that, you get the idea that you're jumping into a cold pool, especially when they went to Yosemite, which was a very different look to it. But the feel is the same, and it actually has more functionality. And it's like, it's
not nearly as dramatic as going from Windows 7 to Windows 8. By the way,
or Windows 95 to XP.
Holy smokes.
Which I'm sure some people may actually still be doing.
Yeah.
anyway. So if you're gonna if you want to upgrade to Yosemite, you have our blessing.
Yep, I think it's pretty safe to do it now. But I will add one more little but. Make sure that whatever your hardware, make sure your hardware and software that you use is fully qualified to run on Yosemite. Another little important tip.
Excellent.
And we've got a bunch of video from the NAMM show. I figured we'd run this package right at the top of the show. It's, well, it speaks for itself. Here you go. Here's some more highlights from NAMM 2015 in NAMM Anaheim.
Hey, this is George Whittam reporting for Whittam's World here at the NAMM Show 2015. Last day of the show, picking up some cool stuff today, including the company that makes Shuttle Pro.
This is our Shuttle Pro version 2. It's 15 programmable buttons, shuttle and jog dials, completely customizable. Works with Windows and Mac. Comes with presets for your favorite audio and video programs like Pro Tools, Adobe Audition, as well as Final Cut.
Oh, nice. You don't have to totally custom. You don't have to program it manually every time.
You don't have to, but if you want to, you can take the settings that we give you and customize them to your liking. You obviously assign these to things that you use all the time, mark in, mark out.
So those are stickers that you add that come with the kit when you load a certain preset?
Yep.
You put on the stickers?
They come with a little button cap, so these little clear buttons come off. And then you can use our pre-labeled little cutouts and put them in there. Or nice. You can run them through Photoshop or your printer or whatever and make your own customized ones.
So the other one I'm not so familiar with, this little guy.
This is the Shuttle Express. It's the little brother. This is 5 buttons. Same type of deal with the jog and shuttle.
Okay.
$59.95. $100, $99.95. This one has macro support, so if you want to do a whole list of things like save your project, export to disk, close that project, open another project, enter the name of your new project, you can have all that assignable to just one button. So the Pro does that, the Express does not.
Gotcha.
And this is a small list of
show me that list again.
Some of the applications. So pretty much the whole Adobe suite.
All of Adobe.
Pretty much
tons of
all of the Apple stuff. And then, various products.
Add one for Twisted Wave.
Yeah,
have you heard of Twisted Wave?
I haven't.
That's the thing. It's such a niche product, but we love it in VoiceOver. Again, totally customizable keyboard shortcuts. Very simple. It's like a SoundForge, but just really simplified. It's really nice. Cool.
Yeah.
This sounds like a perfect complement to all those.
Yeah.
Well, thanks a lot, man.
Yeah, you're welcome. Thank you.
Really appreciate it.
Hi, this is George Whittam reporting for Whittam's World. We've made our way over to the MXL booth. MXL makes a wide range of mics, but let's focus on a few that are really suitable for voiceover, and I've got Ruben here to help me with that. How you doing, Ruben?
I'm doing great. How about yourself?
Very, very good, man. Having a good time.
So for voiceover stuff, we introduced the Genesis FET. Now, you guys might be familiar with the Genesis 2 microphone. Has the punchiness, kind of extra syllabus up top. With the FET, you get a solid-state circuitry microphone that gives you the warmth and still that quality that you want from a vocal mic. Now for voiceover guys, this is great. The reason why is because you get plenty of gain, has a frequency response from 20 to 20. You can run it through your preamp and get very low noise. It has a lot of body to it. And being a solid state mic is naturally going to be a lot quieter than your tube microphone. So if you're looking for that Genesis mic, but you don't want the tube, definitely the solid state is the way to go.
Does a mic like this need a special preamp that has a lot of gain, or could you plug that into your Scarlett 2i2
you can plug into your Scarlett 2i2, $100 ADD to converter, whether it's PreSonus or Focusrite, whoever it may be. It ships with the shock mount inside of a case for $399. Has a very elegant look with the red and the gold.
This frequency response is very smooth, very, very flat. It doesn't jump up too much. I'll jump the video forward. But yeah, the response is pretty flat, which I think is actually not a bad thing, because with voiceover we can always add in what we need later, but to capture it clean is good.
We're going to give you a flat response so that whether you're a voiceover guy or you're someone doing music, you have total control over the tonality. TR series is part of the new thing we're doing at MXL. We're offering the black chrome look with a lot of our vocal condenser microphones. Now this thing sells for about $349. Once again, this is also low noise, so you don't need a fancy preamp. You don't need the expensive interface. This can plug into your M-Box, your 2x2, whatever the case may be. Now this mic is going to sound a lot bigger and warmer than the mic we just spoke about, which is the Genesis FET. This has a large 32mm capsule inside, so if you're looking for that voice of God with the low end, that 20/20 spectrum, the V89 is definitely the way to go. And this mic ships with a shock mount inside of a flight case for $349. So really, really inexpensive.
Awesome. How about an entry-level microphone that complements this line?
So the V67G has been in our line for over a decade now. What makes the V67G special is that there's a selected transformer inside that really warms up the signal. So if you take a look at this frequency response as well, once again, you get a flat response with a low noise mic, and this sells for about $119 online. And the MXL V60G has basically become synonymous with the MXL brand because it's one of our first mics that we manufactured, and it's one of the mics that we sell the most. So we have voiceover artists using this, musicians, all different types of folks using it. And once again, this mic doesn't require the fancy interface. Plug into your interface you have at home, or your USB adapter, just a straight XLR cable into it, and you're good to go.
Very cool. What's this eye? I see this has two different curves. What's the eye all about?
Yeah, so if you're looking to kind of spice up the vibe, we make the eye version, and this is something that only MXL does. Basically, the warm and bright is essentially like having two mics in one. The warm side gives you the same sound as the V67G with it being flat and warm. Okay. And when you flip the bright, what you would do is actually turn the mic around. There'll be an LED that lights up there. The bass rolls off, and about 5K the frequencies begin to peak, and you get a completely different tonality.
So it literally is two mics in there.
It's literally two mics in one. So if you're the voiceover guy who's doing a variety of different work, and maybe you kind of want to give it a little more air up top for a particular commercial, whatever it might be, as opposed to going out and buying two mics, you can just flip the switch, and there you go.
You flip it around.
Yep.
And it's got a high-pass filter too.
Has a high-pass filter as well as a 10 dB pad. You know, if you're going to be loud and put it in front of guitar cab, but for voiceover work, once again, low noise, high sensitivity, frequency response from 20 to 20.
Very cool, man.
Hey everybody, it's George Whittam from NAMM Show in Anaheim 2015. I can't hear myself at all right now, not a word, because I'm wearing these Blue Microphones brand MoFi headphones. These things have had a lot of buzz because, well, first of all, look at these things. I mean, have you ever seen a headphone that looks like this? I never have. The design, the industrial design is unbelievable. It's like automotive car suspension adjustments on the side. And it even lets you control how tight the headphone squeezes against your head, which is really cool. These aren't just regular headphones either. These have amplifiers in them. I believe it's like a 250 milliwatt per channel headphone, which doesn't sound like much, but they put out some serious volume. You can plug these things into an iPod, any low-end audio source, and the amps make up the difference. And right now I'm listening to a vinyl cut of Metallica's Master of Puppets Battery, and it is cranking. Yeah. Unreal, man. Ho, ho, ho.
And that's a look at the EWABS news.
Sounds like you had a great time there.
Man, I always have a good time at that show.
Yeah, it's like a toy store to you.
It really is, man. Well, we got a ton of questions. Let's see how many we can plow through and before we drag the show down too much further than I already did with that video.
Yes. I'll let you handle the first one since you seem to know what time we're doing this.
Okay. What, the Jack DeGolia question?
No, the one about the international show.
Oh!
I'm off one. Go ahead.
Oh,
right.
I was looking at the Jack DeGolia thing.
All right, go with
yeah,
Jack's
he said he asked, actually, is there any reason to upgrade to Yosemite? And I would say the reason or the advantage to upgrading to Yosemite is if you are an iPhone user that likes to have everything that syncs together, talks together. If you want to be able to answer an incoming phone call on your computer, all that kind of crazy stuff, yes, then you'll like the new Yosemite stuff. Otherwise, don't screw with what already works. If your system's already rock solid and you're using it for production, don't mess with it. Next.
It's like I get an update, I throw it in there, I don't worry about it. Larson Bennett asks, now I've heard you guys say some positive things about the 2i2, that's the Focusrite Scarlett 2i2, but just reading between the lines, I get the feeling you might not be that fond of the Avid M-Box Mini. What are your thoughts? Now here's my favorite part of this question. I asked a guy in the biz for whom I have respect, and his opinion is that the 2i2 might be a cut above the M-Box. Well, that guy is probably right. We've been penning the M-Box here for going on 4 years now. I think it was probably one of the first things we talked about when we started the show back in 2011, because a lot of people had M-Boxes, and the problems usually traced back to there. I've been using a 2i2 for almost 2 years now, and it just sounds good. Focusrite really has their act together on these things.
Yeah,
what do you think?
I have that exact M-Box he was referring to. Actually, he had sent a picture. I didn't put it up, but there was a picture of the M-Box 3, M-Box Mini 3 by Avid. That's the one I actually use, and I actually use it during the show. It's part of our chain. The sound you're getting from Dan and everybody else on Zoom comes through the Avid. That's what I use it for. It's a utility box. It's also because I have to use it to run Pro Tools Express if I want to run Pro Tools Express. That's the only reason why I use it. It's actually the noisiest piece in my studio. It actually has a whistling, whining sound, whereas my other stuff doesn't. So,
very common with the boxes.
Very common. All right, number 3. Josh says, is there an international show? Short answer, yes. March 9th. We are going to have an international show, and we are going to have it at noon Pacific time. So you have to figure out your time zone to figure out where you are. But we are
GMT plus.
We're +8, but then it's daylight savings. I don't know, whatever the heck it is right now. So it's about 8 or 9, something like that. If you're in the England zone. Anyway, but if you're in Australia, it's like 8 in the morning.
Right.
So that's going to be fun.
Yeah, well, I think it's a little earlier than that in Australia, but
depending on what part of Australia you're in, yeah.
Depending on what part of Australia, but we've got a great lineup of people coming on from all over the world to join us. That ought to be a lot of fun.
It's gonna be a blast.
And finally, Ron Grandia asks, "I just got a used Whisper Room, so I guess you have to yell in it. And once I treated the acoustics on the inside, I am satisfied with the sound. However, I'm disappointed with its isolation." Well, big surprise there, particularly in the 60 to 80 hertz range, which isn't necessarily a big problem.
That's low.
Yes, I find the whole unit rings like a bell in those frequencies.
Yes, it does.
Airplanes flying over seem to be my biggest problem.
Yeah.
Knocking on the walls produces a distinct thung. It's really tight. And I'm thinking of adding some mass to the walls with more MDF and padded inner layer pressing on the existing surface to dampen vibration. Am I tilting at windmills? Well, if the thing about isolation is you need damping. You've got to prevent the vibrations from the outside from getting to the inside. Adding mass can help, but it all has to be decoupled. You can't just add heavy stuff onto a Whisper Room and think that's going to work.
Yep. If you want to stop low frequency noise that's that low, it takes massive walls that are totally decoupled. You are not going to stop them with any Whisper Room, any sound brick, any studio bricks, any vocal booth. None of them will do anything below about 100 hertz. So there you go. That's the truth of it.
Right.
So
that's why you have a bass roll-off filter.
That's right. I pass the crap out of it and wish you luck on it. So it's frustrating, I know, but don't go tilting windmills. Not worth the effort.
Absolutely. All righty. Well, that's all the questions. Hey, if you got questions for us, just write to us at ewabshop@gmail.com. And your question too could be right here on East West Audio Body Shop. All righty. We got a thing coming up with my tip of the week and lots of other stuff. So We'll be right back. But I guess I got to just launch right into the first spot here.
No, we got a package.
Oh, okay. Well, in that case, we'll be right back right after this.
Hey, this is Roger Leopardi, and you're watching East West Audio Body Shop.
VO Studio Tech. Recording made simple.
Hi, I'm Peter McHugh.
This is Jim Tasker from Los Angeles, California.
Hi, this is Bill Ratner in Los Angeles.
Hi, this is Scott Rummel here in Yorba Linda, California.
Hi, my name is Rick Wasserman.
Hi, this is Tom Kane.
Hi, my name is Vanessa Marshall.
Hi, my name is Zurich.
Hi, I'm Mary McKittrick.
Randy Thomas chiming in.
Hi, this is Joe Szymanski.
Hey, this is Rick Robles.
Hi, my name is John Patrick Armstrong.
I was turned on to George by none other than Don LaFontaine, who always swore by his health.
George is absolutely awesome.
ISDN, Source Connect, Phone Patch, FTP, you name it, George set it up.
It's really the best thing I've ever done for myself. I feel free, safe, fearless, like anything is possible in here.
Unless you like to look for opportunities to waste time, call George.
And he did all of that, long distance over the phone and the internet.
I'm very happy with George, and I cherish him.
Thanks, George. You make it easy.
But we're going to talk about something first, and that's voice ZAMP.
Oh, very well done, my friend.
Why, thank you very much. Alrighty, voice ZAMP, because all of you should have voice ZAMP. It's a great way to present voice ZAMP. All of your demos, voice ZAMP. And this is something nobody else has. Individually, in order, it gives someone looking at your website and your demos a way to very quickly go through it and find the stuff that they want to find. Look it up. Somebody throw it in the chat room.
Okay, Here we go.
Voice ZAMP. You have to do it. And your demo's right there. Voice ZAMP. Voice ZAMP. So you go over to voicezam.com. VoiceZam, it is the way to put your demos on your websites. But I have to announce that VoiceZam will give you a 45-day free trial. Who else gives you that? Can't beat it.
And now, back to East West Audio Body Shop, where every week it's Apollo 13.
But not this week. We're back here on East West Audio Body Shop. We've got Jeff Kafer, Karen Souer, and David Wilson joining us in just a couple of minutes. But I've got a webinar coming up on February 26th that we're doing with VoiceOver Extra on mic choice. And what is the ultimate choice for mic? Because I am sick of getting this question, so I figured I'd just answer it ultimately, and you can all show up.
It sounds like a short webinar.
It could be, but it won't, because okay. I'm going to explain how certain microphones work and why you should or shouldn't use them.
Cool.
For VoiceOver, what you use them for, and other stuff, I really could care less. But anyway, let's roll that footage, and we'll be right back.
All right.
You know, one thing about buying a VoiceOver microphone these days, it's a little bit like going through the checkout line, trying to pick out what gum you want. But here's the thing. What's the difference between all the gum and mints? And really, what's the difference between expensive stuff and cheap stuff? How good is good? And what do you require in your home studio? First off, we know that most of this stuff was designed for recording music. Miking and mixing music and the need to understand the relationships between various sound sources and the right mic to capture it is an art unto itself. It takes years to master. Little of that has anything to do with dry voice in a home studio. Second, what really is the difference between the expensive stuff and the more moderate-priced mics? Couple of things. The more expensive stuff is more durable over the long haul. While it's more sensitive and sometimes delicate, if you take good care of it,
It will last literally forever. The real difference between a Neumann and, say, a Samson CO1U or an AT2020 is sensitivity. A $2,000 U87 or a $20,000 Telefunken can hear breathing in another county. That's great if you can keep out the sound of everything except your voice, what I call an acoustically sterile environment. That costs more money, lots more. So, in essence, if you buy a Ferrari, you better have a nice garage for it, too. More expensive mics have amazingly low self-noise. It only sends out your voice and the sound of your mustache hairs rubbing against each other. So, moderately priced mics are not as sensitive. But that difference in sensitivity is measured by sophisticated instruments that measure things to tolerances that you can't even hear. Your home studio, while nice and comfy, is literally impossible to completely soundproof. You don't need the sensitivity of a megabuck mic to pick up the sound of your cat scratching his post 2 floors away. But with proper mic technique, everything you say gets picked up nice and clear by a mic that's 1/10 the price. And you can have a field day shopping for one of those. You can look at frequency response charts to see how a studio condenser mic of any price compares to another. You can base your choice on that compared to your voice type, but that's a little bit more complicated and a discussion for another time. I've talked with lots of manufacturers and retailers, and most of them agree that for every $500 you go up in price, you're probably only looking at maybe 1% improvement in quality. So the bottom line is that you don't have to break the bank to sound good. The thing to invest in is your skill in breaking down a script, mastering good voice acting technique, and finding where your vocal strengths are. In other words, don't put the cart before the horse. Having a great mic doesn't get you work. Work gets you a good microphone and the capital to invest in housing for it. And that's my tip of the week.
Yeah, I think one of the interesting things I found out, hanging out in various music stores like Banjo Emporium, and they pretty much agree on this, is for every $500 you go up in price of a microphone, you may actually be only going up about maybe 1% in actual audio quality to where anybody could actually notice. So it's not necessary to spend thousands and thousands of dollars on a mic unless you are in a really quiet place. Otherwise, you're going to hear Ella, even if you're in Illinois.
Exactly, like you are right now.
So don't go crazy. But on February 26th, go over to VoiceOver Extra. We're doing a fun webinar on mic choice, and I'll elaborate a little bit more on that.
Awesome.
Well, we're going to talk about audiobooks here in just a couple of minutes. And so we've got Jeff Kafer and Karen Souer and David Wilson, who's a publisher. We'll probably have some interesting questions for him. But first, we got to talk about one of our favorite people. And no, we're not talking about pick person. But we are going to talk about Harlan Hogan, because he is one of our favorite people, because he is there for us over at voiceoveressentials.com. Yeah, voiceoveressentials.com. Go on over there. If you need something for voiceover for your studio, he has it. I mean, aside from his own signature series stuff, like the headphones and the VO1A, great condenser microphone, great for audiobooks, by the way. He can get you almost anything else that's existing out there. But one of the cool things he has there is a great library of books on voiceover, including his own book. Several of his books. He's written a couple that are very interesting, but he has all the other great voiceover titles there. So if you're somebody who likes to read about voiceover, because we all do read for a living, go on over there, check out books and some of the other things he has, along with the porta booths and all the other fun stuff, and tell them we sent you. Actually, if you actually go scroll down the page here on our page here on EWABS, which you're probably all watching on, right at the bottom, if you scroll down, you'll see Harlan talking into a porta booth. That's actually the Porta Booth Pro there. And if you click on that, that will take you directly there. It's like opening the door to his store. You walk in and they just greet you there virtually. and they take good care of you. And that is a great way to get any new stuff that you need, because he has it. VoiceOverEssentials.com. Go there. Buy his stuff. Easy enough. Thanks, Harlan.
Thanks, Harlan. You're the buddy. You're the buddy.
Yeah.
You're the buddy we all needed to keep this show moving. We really appreciate it.
176 episodes.
We'll be right back.
Are you confused about how to set up and maintain a professional quality voiceover studio? No wonder. The information out there is mostly mythology. This is the best microphone to use. You have to have a preamp. You need a soundproof booth. This software is the best. Your audio must be broadcast quality. Consult with someone who knows the truth. Someone who's been there, in the trenches, doing voiceover for over 30 years. Someone with unparalleled experience with voiceover studios, who's worked with hundreds of voice actors and designed hundreds of personal studios. He knows how to teach and cares about your success. In one of the harshest environments known to voiceover, your home. Dan Leonard, the Home Studio Master. Separate myth from fact and get a handle on your personal voiceover studio. Contact the Home Studio Master at homevoiceoverstudio.com. Drop off a specimen of your dry audio for a free analysis.
Whence came these two radiant celestial brothers, united for an instant as they crossed the stratosphere of our starry window? One from the east and one from the west.
Very good.
And
I'm
we're
going
back.
to assume we're back. Okay. Very
Sorry, I
good.
forgot about the countdown. I was mesmerized by the video clip and the music.
It's a mesmerizing video clip. Well, let's mesmerize ourselves with some talk on audiobooks, because there are a pile of people watching the show tonight. I mean, a really big pile. Maybe I shouldn't use the word pile. Maybe a large audience tonight. A huge amount of human beings are watching, and probably some of their pets as well, who will be equally as interested. We have three fabulous guests with us tonight. First off, a great friend of ours, a guy who just knows audiobooks inside out, backwards, upside down, and from behind. Jeff Kafer joining us from California. Jeff, how you doing tonight?
I'm great. Thanks for having me.
Pleasure to have you. Also, a publisher. We don't get to talk to the publishers much. You know, we talk to them on the phone or we have emails with them, but we really don't talk to the publishers themselves. But joining us from North Carolina is David Wilson. David, good evening.
Hello. Glad to be here.
Thanks very much for joining us. And also from the other end of North Carolina, we have a great friend of ours also, Karen Souer, who is a virtual assistant. She is an expert on helping you with organize your voiceover business and your audiobook business. Not that they aren't the same thing, but
great to be here. Thanks for having me, guys.
Thanks, Karen. Thanks for being here. Well, I figure we'll just sort of toss a few questions out here and let you guys chew it over and tell us what you think. First off, there are certainly a lot of genres of voiceover material out there. E-learning and commercials and narration and explainer videos. Nothing seems to be growing faster than audiobooks. Why audiobooks over other genres of voice work? What is it about audiobooks that seems to be attracting so many people? Jeff?
For me, it's audiobooks are basically a one-person play, and I get all the roles. I get the good guy, I get the bad guy, I get everybody in between. And from a business perspective, it's a week's worth of full-time work. So there's that.
That's true. And everybody wants to work.
Well, yeah, I mean, everybody wants to work, and it's, for me, I mean, I realize we could probably just focus on commercials and e-learning and get paid more, but it would be hard for me to get a commercial on Monday and not work for a couple of days until the next commercial came in. Even though the money is the same, I can't just sit and do nothing. You know what I'm saying? So I like having the steady work of, I got a book, it's going to take me 4 days, steady work.
Yeah. And how many jobs do you usually have lined up over a period of 2-3 weeks?
For me, yeah. In terms of books, I'm booked out generally about 2 months.
Wow.
Yeah.
All right. Well, that helps. David, what about you? What do you now? You're fairly new to this business because you came from publishing itself. But what are your thoughts on the whole business and how you've seen it evolve?
Well, actually, I started as a listener. I've probably listened to like thousands of hours of audiobooks. And it's not been quite as short a period as you might think. I think Jeff and I have been working together at least 3 years, over 400 titles now.
Wow.
The difference is that when I started out, it was one of those dream things. Only the really top tier people could have an audiobook. Costs a lot of money, costs a lot of studio time. They brought in, big names and you always thought it'd be nice to get your own book as an audiobook, but even those mid-list authors weren't getting audiobooks because it cost $60 to buy one. You could get one from the library, and now with ACX and with the home studios coming up to par with some of the bigger studios, it's just a new outlet for authors and for publishers, a whole new world to explore.
Oh, it absolutely is. It's just growing huge. Now, Karen, you help people with their voiceover businesses. How does it differ with assisting people organizing, doing just audiobooks? What are some of the things you do to help them?
Well, I do both proofing and editing of audiobooks. Honestly, it does have a lot of similarities because there's a lot of scheduling involved. I'm oftentimes juggling more than one book at once. So, I have to make sure that I'm getting the deliverables from them and returning them in a, a timely manner. And everyone is different. It definitely has its commonalities to the other parts of my business because every job is unique. Every narrator has different things that they care about. Some hate their breath. Some hate their mouth noise. Some hate their nose. I mean, it depends. It's never boring. And I get to read a lot of really interesting books that way. So it's honestly been a big part of my business almost from the very beginning, when Dad started handing me audiobooks, because my father, Bob Souer, is a big audiobook narrator. So he's been doing them as long as I've been doing this and longer. So.
And he's a great one too. He's just a pleasure to listen to. Well, the state of the audiobook business is evolved a lot. I mean, it used to be books on tape, and you'd have, a big cassette and then they were on CDs and you'd listen to them in the car, when you're driving between Buffalo and DC or something like that, and you'd get through a whole novel. But it's changed a whole lot. I like to make the joke that some of the publishing companies, the major players, want everything since Gutenberg down on their hard drives. So a lot of stuff is getting recorded out there. Too much stuff, or should it should all be thrown out there? Why are there so many people getting into this, thinking this is a really great way to make a living when there's, obviously a lot of titles out there and a lot of people who want to get in? Jeff, what do you think?
Well, I think ACX has a lot to do with that. Prospective narrators can hop online, go to ACX, and find 3,000 titles to be narrated. Woohoo! Sounds like a gold mine, right? Well, yes and no. I mean, you have to be very careful what you actually go out and try to grab. But it's the allure of, you mean I can sit in my room and just read books all day? Yes, you can certainly do that. Whether it will pay the bills or not is a whole other story altogether. I don't know anybody who makes 100% of their living just doing ACX books. So the old school publishers, or the traditional publishers like Blackstone and Tantor and Macmillan, I mean, they're all very much driving the audiobook industry still. And anybody who makes a living doing audiobooks has their hand in all of those different pots. I mean, man cannot live, or woman cannot live on ACX alone. There's just no way. For me personally, I use it to fill my schedule in between books from traditional publishers.
Right. Yeah. I mean, and clearly ACX is the place where, I won't say, there are some vanity publishers there, but you're not, Stephen King is not getting his stuff done in ACX, is he, Dave?
Not generally. If you look at the main page, though, they try to make you think Neil Gaiman is.
I would do Stephen King on royalty share without a stipend, just in case his agent is listening.
Interesting. But how have you seen the business change, David? I mean, you've been at it now for a few years, and you started off. You said you started off before ACX. How has it changed for you as a publisher? How is the market?
When we started out, I was trying to figure out how we can possibly pay the narrator a fair amount of money and get the author any money. And Jeff and I kind of came up with it was a royalty share thing, but the problem with it was really driven by the big companies back then. And Audible is the only place still that sells a lot of audiobooks, and they were only giving us 15%. So we couldn't live on that, share that with the author and the narrator, and it was kind of falling apart until ACX came along, and that became like the Kindle for audiobooks. They give you the tool. The problem is that the authors and the narrators there seem to share a lack of understanding of the other side of the business a lot. And until you get some experience behind you, you end up with books that seem like they're a really good deal, and it turns out that the guy couldn't write his way out of a paper bag, but had a really nice cover. Or you can end up with a narrator that sounds like they're talking on a tin can, but had a really good demo reel done in a studio somewhere. And that's not what you get when you finally get the final product. So
well, that's not supposed to happen. Yeah, I mean, and we can talk about audio quality a little bit, but let's get some general opinions of ACX. When they came on the scene, now I had done a bunch of titles, and then ACX suddenly jumped on the scene, and suddenly everything was available out there. Do you think is ACX good? I mean, first off, is it good or bad for the rights holders? And is it good or bad for narrators? I'm sure we'll get a split opinion about this, but what do you guys think?
It depends on whether you're talking about rights holders of people who are already getting their books put into audio, or the 95% of other authors who never had a shot at it at all. There's some really good stuff coming out of ACX, and we've been fortunate enough to get guys like Clive Barker, and we've done some of Jeff did some of the narration on them, and we've done very well with some of those. And those are books that never would have been seen in audio, or that have been, they were done in audio in abridged versions 100 years ago, and that's all there was. So I think it's wonderful that all the stuff is available. I think it's unfortunate that ACX and Audible don't do anything to promote ACX titles. They don't provide any input to their machine that sells 100,000 copies of an audiobook for your average guy. So it's still a crapshoot. I mean, Jeff knows at least one guy, Jim Bernheimer, who kicks butt with audiobooks. And
well, and that's from the narrator's perspective, that's kind of important to understand. And I'll be talking more about this at FAF Camp. It's really important being able to choose the right books, especially if you're doing royalty share. Actually, if you're not doing royalty share and you get a per finished hour gig, I don't care if it sells or not. I mean, that's not my thing. I mean, I'm going to do the best I can, but my income is not dependent upon the royalty share. But picking the right book is really key. And I'm really very picky about who I will do royalty share for. Jim Bernheimer's one, Jeremy Robinson, David Wood. So in order to be successful on ACX, especially if you're trying the royalty share, you've got to do the due diligence. So from a narrator's perspective, there is money to be made on ACX. I do well on ACX in addition to all the other stuff that I do. I'm lucky in a way that I got in on the ground floor of ACX. I was actually one of the beta testers. But I'm just super careful about who I will narrate for. And 9 times out of 10, actually those 3 names that I just gave were people that I brought into ACX because I had researched them, contacted them, and said, hey, let's get your books made. Let's use ACX as a platform. So if you simply think about ACX as the platform and the mechanism, the contracts, et cetera, to get the books done, then that frees you up to go out and find other authors who are not yet audiobooked and do their books. And I'm seeing more and more in the Facebook groups, people doing that sort of thing. which is cool to see.
From my perspective, honestly, it's a vehicle for people like me to make a living. A lot of the bigger houses seem to do most things in-house. So there's a lot of opportunity out there. There's also a lot of disadvantages because you end up with those amateur folks recording in their closet with, an Audacity USB mic and a USB mic. But, it's like it's not a gold mine, but it's sifting for gold because there's really, like the other two gentlemen here were saying, there's some really good stuff out there. And I've been lucky enough to work with some really fantastic narrators on some good material that I've really enjoyed through ACX. So
I think one thing for me that's been amazing is the people that I have gotten to work with. I mean, audio award-winning narrators that we've worked with, the list gets longer and longer. And it's just been amazing that they'll take the time. Simon Vance has done a bunch of books with us, and Johnny Heller, and Karen Souer more with us. Scott Brick's worked with us. Robert Foss just did a Whitley Strieber book for us.
Wow.
Peter Bishop. He just finished one.
Hey,
I never would have had that opportunity.
Peter Bishop. Who's Peter Bishop?
Yeah.
Just ask him and he'll tell you.
Yes, he will.
He will, in the finest of British accents. Now, one of the things that a lot of people think about is the rates, that people will pay, and that people are willing to take. Now, you're talking, some of the big names in the business, like Scott Brick and Simon Vance. They're not going to take a book, on a royalty share. They're going to be paid.
Not true.
Oh, really? Tell us more. Oh, they will if they know it's a great book.
I think, it definitely depends on the book. Simon Vance is doing a Magica right now, and there was no stipend on that, and that's like a 20-something hour book. I mean, it's huge.
To be clear, that's Clive
Barker's favorite book that he's ever written, and it's going to be huge. So.
Right. Well, and like you said, that's Clive Barker. And there are some great authors, and people are going to just.
He's not going to do one of mine.
But what are some of the ways that you can make money doing this? I mean, you were talking about royalty share and stipend. Can you explain the difference to those watching that really don't know what that's all about?
Yeah, who are you asking? Whoever.
Either one of you.
Okay. Well, per finished hour is if it's a 10-hour book, you get paid X number of dollars per finished hour. If it's a 10-hour book, you get whatever, and that's it. You don't get any royalties. Royalty share is where you don't get any money up front. You narrate the book, and then you get 20% of the income that the book provides. There's the third facet, which is a stipend deal where you get Audible will pay you $100 per finished hour, and then you get the royalties. So that can be a good deal because the costs of production are paid for if you outsource to somebody like Karen. So that's really nice to have. The royalty, go ahead.
But what determines that? I mean,
what determines what?
What determines whether it's going to be a royalty share, or it's going to be a combination of things, or it's going to be per hour?
That has changed.
Tell us about it.
It used to be really easy for me to get something, to have a stipend applied. And I think what they did was they overextended and spent millions of dollars. And Audible said, whoa, we got all these books and nobody's buying any of them. We're not getting our money back. So now they have an algorithm, and you can request it, but they pretty much tell you it doesn't matter. If it hasn't been put on a stipend within 2 weeks, it's not going to be.
Yeah, and that's created a number of problems that I've posted about on Facebook. At the risk of biting the hand that feeds, a lot of stipend titles go up that require a male and female narrator, and there's no mechanism in ACX to do a royalty share male-female duo narrate. There's just no way to do it unless one person is hired as the producer and then wants to send 10% every month to the other narrator. Who wants to do that?
Yeah, really.
So
what we've done in that case is gotten one of the two and ended up paying them.
Right.
Like Stiletto books, and we've always paid the male narrators because most of it was the female.
Now, David, have you ever gone out and just sought somebody? Like you said, you were looking for somebody and you found Jeff. Instead of going through ACX, how do you go about finding a good narrator for a book? And then what's a good way to negotiate with a publisher? If, say, someone calls you and says, "Hey, I want to do this book. I have this book I've got rights to, or this is a book I wrote." How do you negotiate? What's a good tactic? Or
how do I negotiate, or how do they negotiate?
Let's look at it from both ways.
I really try. We've really cut back on which books we'll put into audio, and the reason is simply the sales and the return for the narrator and for the author. Generally, I'll go through. I don't really go outside ACX because I know so many narrators already, and if I don't know someone specific for a thing, I'll listen to samples until I find somebody. But generally, I'll just let them know right up front. We're pretty much a royalty share publisher, and I think their voice is perfect for. We've run into quite a few that were just by accident perfect for the thing that they did.
Jeff, you want to cut in there?
Every bodily noises. Jeff is.
He's acting.
I joked about doing tequila shots, but I'm actually just drinking a beer.
Oh, okay.
We have gone after people like Johnny. Johnny Heller and I have been talking ever since the first day I started doing audiobooks, because I loved a set of books that he did long ago. And he's been feeling bad. And finally he did this. It was a Forrest Carter book, The Education of Little Tree, which is a classic.
Yep.
He read it and fell in love with it and said, "This is your book. I'll do this one." And we put that in for the Audie this year. I don't know if it'll get nominated or not.
Oh,
he did
cool.
a wonderful job on that book.
Yeah, no, we've had Johnny on. He was a riot on here, and very talented guy. Jeff, how do you negotiate? Now, if you're not working with David and say a publisher approaches you, how do you go about saying, well, here's what I charge, or is there more to it than that?
Well, luckily I'm union. So I have a set rate of, I can just say it, $225 a finished hour is the bottom rate that union talent can take and have it qualify for their pension and health. But on top of that, you've got to add your outsourcing to people like Karen. And that can be anywhere from $65 a finished hour to $125, depending on who you're going to get. So the key is it's real enticing. I see a lot of people go, "Oh my God, I got a per finished hour book. It's $150 a finished hour. Score, I'm in the money." Well, okay. So that doesn't leave you much room to outsource your editing and your mastering and your proofing. So you can do that yourself. You've just tacked on an extra 3 times the amount of work. So your $150 an hour slowly drops in value when you think about the number of man hours or woman hours you're putting in. So I'm a huge fan of outsourcing, but so if you're going to do that, I take the straight rate of $225 or whatever, and then add on the mastering and the proofing and the editing. So, that gets a bit high for a lot of authors. Okay, well, I'm not going to lowball myself.
Right, nor should you.
Right.
Yeah, it's sort of like having an ISDN line. If you're doing commercial work, you've got to be able to afford to flip that thing on.
Right.
And if you're going to be doing audiobooks, you've got to be able to afford, getting somebody to do your proofing work. Which leads me to my next question: can you properly self-proof your work if you're not really all that experienced?
No.
Can you take that one?
Yeah. I disagree. It's like in high school or college when you write your English papers, they always tell you to get someone else to look at them.
Mom.
It's the exact same thing, because you can't hear, your eyes and your ears won't track because it's you talking, and it's hard to track both at once, and you're going to miss stuff.
Your brain
definitely
fills in the blanks. Your brain
exactly. I've seen people skip like whole lines and paragraphs, and who knows if you're going to catch that stuff the second time around, because obviously your eyes jumped the first time,
Along those lines, too, the value of a good proofer is every single book this will happen. My proofer will send me back a spreadsheet of stuff that they found, and they'll send me a cue, like, here's the line that you said wrong, and then, you replace it, whatever. And I'll listen and follow along, and I'm like, I said that exactly right. What are they talking about? And it'll take me 3 or 4 times to listen to what I said to realize, oh, crap, I really didn't say that. So even when they tell me there's a problem, I'm still not necessarily hearing the problem, even though I'm totally wrong. So a good proofer really is an extra set of ears, because you're going to think that you said it right, even though you might not have.
Why wouldn't you want to improve your product? Why wouldn't you want to give the best possible product to your rights holder or your publisher or whomever? I mean, really, I try to tell people, even if you can't afford to pay me for the whole book, pay me for the first 4 hours and then get a jump on your narrating, I mean, why wouldn't you have someone to help you run the marathon of audiobook narrating? Like the, what's it called? Relay race, let me hand it off to you.
Absolutely. All right. Well, George, you can take this stuff. Let's talk a little bit about tech with voiceover, because boy, we get questions about that constantly.
Yeah. So, well, I mean, I thought I'd talk a little bit about what you guys prefer to use in the studios. I know earlier there was a mention about USB mics, and there's actually a question in the chat room about it. So we'll talk about that later. But what DAWs, digital audio workstations, do you guys prefer to use in your own productions? Starting with, I'll go left to right as I see on the screen. Starting with Karen, what do you like to work on? I work,
excuse me. I work on Sony SoundForge 10. It's the program that I started with when I started working with Dad before my business even started. And it's the one I'm most familiar and comfortable with, although I've dabbled a little bit in some Audacity just to see what it did. But that's what I do. So,
Jeffrey, what do you like to work in?
I am now a Reaper convert. I use Reaper because it does punch and roll natively. I used to use Audition 3, but that required an extra program and scripting and blah, blah, blah to do true punch and roll. So I'm a big fan of Reaper now.
Oh, and why is it called punch and roll?
I sense an inside joke here.
It came up in a conversation on one of the Facebook groups recently. Why the hell is it called punch and roll?
Because it dates back to the old musical. When you're working in a music, you'd punch in a fix or whatever. It's the same thing. You make a mistake, you position your cursor, you get a bit of pre-roll, and then as soon as that pre-roll ends, you start talking. So it's one seamless thing. There's no real editing afterward other than what you send off to your editor. So it's a very clean, finished recording that only needs some minor tweaks and edits by whoever you're outsourcing to.
Did it take you a long time to master that? Going to punch and roll versus using a clicker or something to mark your mistakes?
It did. I don't know. I mean, I did my first, 40 books or so doing the old, dog clicker route. And it still works. I hated going back and I'd record for an hour of audio and then be like, oh my God, I got to go that far back in the story. But I knew it was a tactic that I really wanted to learn because I knew all the big kids were doing it. And so I felt it was kind of important to learn. It takes a bit of getting used to, but it's not an unlearnable task. It's, once you figure out the pacing and how things are going and you figure out how your software does it, it's really not that difficult.
David, what software do you use, and have you adopted the punch and roll?
I use narrators in their production studios.
Gotcha. So you're not at this point having to do that side of the thing.
I do have Audition. I mean, I have the Adobe stuff and I have Audacity on my computer, and I've messed around with it just enough to know that with publishing, writing, my day job, and my family, I don't have any time to learn how to do all this stuff. I'm never going to have the time to get that good at it when there's other people that are already qualified. So,
man, I wish every author said the same thing. I go on these keyboards and I see authors who are like, I'm going to do this book myself. And what's the cheapest mic I can find? Sorry, I didn't mean to take your time, but they see it a lot.
It's funny because, we've got one author that we work with, Chet Williamson. He's also a narrator, but he's not a very skilled audio guy. He must be the cleanest punch and roll person ever, because I don't think he punches and rolls. I think he just reads. I don't think he edits at all. I don't think he knows how.
He does not edit. I've mastered most of his stuff. He doesn't edit. He somehow on his little recorder thing, whatever he uses, he punches and rolls. His stuff sounds good, and he's a great actor, which is really the key to being a good narrator.
He seems to be able to roll it out really quickly. It's like Kevin Pierce. That guy's a machine. If anybody's making a living on just ACX, it's him. And he's making a lot of it from me.
Well, if you can, the thing is if you can turn it over, and then you've got a constant roll of things going on there. Now, Jeff, you said it takes you 4 days to do your average book, and and that's like working 12-hour days, or just working 9 to 5, or
9 to 5. 9 to 5. I mean, there's a lot of Facebook breaks in there. So I budget my books in terms of time, in terms of how much per finished hour I can do. I try to budget 2 to 2.5 hours finished hours of finished hours of audio per day. And I know that takes me about 5 hours to actually record it. So factoring in lunch and Facebook breaks and, the kids get home from school and blah, blah, blah. I'm in here for a good 8 hours. Yeah, easily. And then sometimes if I don't hit that 2.5 hour mark, I'm here at night after the kids go to bed.
Yeah, that sounds like voiceover.
Well, you know what? It's audiobooks. It's not voiceover, because the guys who go in and do promos and get $3,000 and then residuals or whatever it is that they get, they're in the studio for, 20 minutes. I kind of envy them.
Yeah, for that promo, but sometimes they're doing that 20 minutes 8 or 9 times a day.
Well, that may be true. That is true.
Yeah,
it's horrifying getting those guys for audiobooks.
Oh, really? Yeah.
You get a guy and he'll be reading out of the book, but it's like you can hear him saying, "And the invoice is on the wall." They talk like that through the whole book. One sentence at a time, very dramatic. It's like nobody's going to listen to this.
You're not telling a joke either, are you, David? You're really being serious.
Not at all. We also had a narrator that we hired because for some reason his demo was okay, but when the book came out, he sounded like Droopy. And he read the whole book that way.
It sounded like Droopy.
We sold 2 copies in 3 years.
Yeah.
Wow.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Dan, go ahead.
Okay.
I'll stop laughing in a second.
Yeah, we got a lot of questions from our audience. Tons.
Oh boy.
It's just piling up. So
none from Peter Bishop, please.
Let me see here. No, none from him that I can see. He's just making comments in the chat room.
Of course he is.
This is unsurprising.
Yeah. Now, if you're getting into audiobooks, some people suggest that you join APA. Who can tell us a little bit more about APA?
The APA is the Audiobook Publishers Association. It is a worthwhile organization to join, because they're sort of they're the group that handles audiobooks. I mean, they run the APAC conference, they run mixers, they run webinars, they run the Audies. So they're sort of the Motion Picture Association of the audiobook world. They're not a union, but they're just sort of a community audiobook organization. And I think it's worth joining. Because a lot of publishers will look for APA members when they're looking for narrators. You also get a discount into the APAC. You can attend local mixers in your area. It's generally worthwhile, I think.
All right,
David,
cool.
I'm a member because I get a better rate when I nominate books for the. It's not really an organization for small publishers. I mean, they don't understand why I can't pay huge amounts of money to take all my authors that were maybe recommended for an award and pay for this table. It's the only award I've ever seen in my life where you had to pay that much money for every title in every category just to be included. So it means that 85% of all audiobooks not considered for the award at all. It makes me a little sad that that with ACX and everything changing the way audiobooks are, that the upper echelon of audiobooks, that and Audiophile magazine and all that, the amount of money required to play in that ballpark is so big that smaller people are never going to be involved in that.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to have to go to APAC one of these years. You know, if I ever get back into doing audiobooks, because it's, you know, it's in New York, and a lot of my friends go who do audiobooks, and just to run into them would be kind of cool.
Hey, you know, Dan, at least come to the Naughties.
Yes.
Yes.
You're in New York. You got to come to the Naughties.
Yes. Yes.
You stepped on my segue, Kafer.
Oh, sorry.
No, no, the Naughties I hear are really good. Because we were talking about conferences. So this would be a good time to insert a little mention about the Voice Over Atlanta conference coming up in March. She was actually one of our sponsors of the show leading up until the event. And Dan, you found that they have a promo code?
They do.
EWABS?
Yes. You know, if you want to go to Voice Over Atlanta, you can save $50 if they use EWABS as their promo code on a general registration. So save yourself a few bucks. But there is some breaking news about Voice Over Atlanta. In case you didn't know, well, you wouldn't, because we're the first people who actually can tell anybody. Sip's going to be there. Joe Cipriano will be at Voice Over Atlanta and doing live demos of promos like he did on our show. He was here, in his studio, and he was actually doing some live stuff for the Queen Latifah show, which was a riot to watch. And he's actually going to be doing that kind of stuff. And a few fortunate people will receive one-on-one coaching with Joe. And
Cool.
and audience questions for Audiobook Masters. That's not even part of that. That just got thrown in underneath. There's supposed to be a space there between
formatting
the copy. This is another reason I have not done many audiobooks lately. So let's just jump from paragraph to paragraph. Anyway, if you want to go to Voice Over Atlanta, save yourself $50 right now. Use the code EWABS and on your general registration. So thanks to all the folks over at Voice Over Atlanta. You're going to be there. Great time last time.
I am going to be there. Edge Studio, surprise, surprise, is a sponsor of the event. I was there last time, and I thought it was really well run. I thought there was good vibes in the space. I've been to FAFCon, which is the vibiest, good feelingest of all, but VO Atlanta had a really good feel to it. A lot of great production. I mean, it was a well-produced event, I should say, very well organized, and it's a great production. I can't say I can't think of anything negative to say. I mean, I know this is a spot. You don't normally say bad things about a sponsor, but I mean, really, it's. I was really, really happy about it, and I'm looking forward to coming back to it. So if you want to be there, voatlanta.me is the domain name.
Yeah. Of course, I remember how happy you were coming back on the bus to the airport, and we were talking. It's like, sounds like you were having a great time.
Yeah, there's a great fun bar within walking distance of the hotel. And yeah, enough said.
Okay. Anyway, we're talking about audiobooks, not about the local breweries. We have Jeff Kafer and Karen Souer and David Wilson, who's a publisher, with us tonight. You guys have lots of questions on audiobooks, so why don't we get right to it? Yes, absolutely. The lovely and talented Ann Richardson asks, David, you must have narrators send you solicitous emails frequently. What is an effective marketing tactic that catches your attention? And what are your pet peeves about narrators?
Well, boy, this is interesting. Here's the thing. Solicitous emails to me about being a narrator get the same pat answer every time. Go to ACX, find one of our books that you think you're correct for, and give us an actual audition from the actual studio and equipment that you're going to send us audio from. Don't send me your voice reel. Don't mail me things, because I can't tell from that studio reel what you're going to sound like on this book. And we would do all our work through ACX. So honestly, the best thing I can tell any narrator that wants to work with Crossroad Press is go to ACX, sign up, search for Crossroad Press. The first 12 to 15 books are always us, and audition.
And also note that most of your auditions are going to be reviewed by me.
Yeah.
There you go.
Only the best ones.
Well, we got a lot of questions, so we'll keep it moving. Jay Sawyer asks, what is the difference from the publisher's end an audiobook versus a hardback or even a paperback book? And I'm talking about overall costs from producing the book in both formats, from advertising to marketing, the whole thing. Have you ever gotten to look at what those numbers are and how they compare?
They compare pretty favorably for me because, like I said, we do mostly royalty share books. I mean, we have paid for some, but not a lot. And the cost for us to do a hardcover involves design and art for the cover and all that. So usually we have all that done on the hardcover, the ebook, and all that before we claim the rights to do the audiobook. So the audiobook for us is the least output of money. The time can be utterly consuming, and for all of that effort and work, it's still hard to sell audiobooks. So the marketing is the hardest part.
Okay,
Thanks.
Mike Martin has a question for the entire panel here. And I'm sure you all have a story about this. Has anyone ever bailed out on finishing a book that they contracted to do? And if so, what kind of excuses were made?
Oh, I actually, David, I'm gonna out us. I actually bailed on one of David's because the main character, it was a Clive Barker book that I really wanted to do. I hadn't read it, but it was Clive Barker, so I wanted to do it. And I realized pre-reading it that 75% of the book required a British accent. So David and I realized this, and we said, "Oh, yeah, it's probably not the best. You're not. It's bad casting." I mean, I didn't want to ruin his book. I didn't want to ruin my reputation as being I didn't want to put myself out there as a crappy narrator. I mean, there's plenty of reasons to do that already. It's about communication. Tell your share rights holder why you're bailing. I mean, in my case, it was an amicable dissolution because it was a necessary thing to find a British narrator to do it. And the book turned out much better than I could have done it. I also bailed from a per finished hour book just because the writing was so absolutely terrible. And I was lucky that the author was completely non-responsive to all of my emails and everything and didn't pay me for the first whatever it is we had contracted to do. So I said, you know what? I'm out of here. We're done. Let's just pay me what, I cut my rate in half just so that it would be incentive to get out of the contract. So that was less amicable. So it happens.
There was a pet peeve that we missed there, though. Jeff just reminded me. We had a couple of guys that took books, and let's be honest, the book's title said something like, Claw of the Demon. See, pretty much going in what kind of a book this is. And then this guy came back and said, well, there's a minister doing something bad in this book, and I have to decline to do it. We're already in the contract. We're already partway into the book. The author's waiting, and at that point, I wasn't very happy. We've had a lot of authors drop out for a lot of reasons, and Jess was a good reason. We should have probably read that more carefully.
Yeah. What do you do in that situation? You just got to basically start from scratch again and go from the beginning, or what?
With ACX, they'll just put it back up for. Once it's been released, they just put it back up for auditions again. Yeah, you have to start all over.
Yikes. Jay Sawyer, Jay Sawyer says, are audiobooks cheaper to produce? I think we kind of covered that. I mean, it really does. Are they cheaper to produce than books, or hardback and paperback books? Well, yeah, from your perspective, David, that's clear.
Yes,
because
no.
Yeah, but that's a really open question that we probably can't answer tonight.
Well, I can actually, because the cheaper of the, there's some cheaper audiobook production companies that I think, like B Audio, their rate starts at $350 a finished hour for full production.
The whole thing,
that includes the whole thing, end to end. That's and they're considered the less expensive of the audiobook publishers. So. And if there's any authors out there, that gives an idea of the cost. 10-hour audiobook is $3,500 end to end. That's not including any marketing that you may do, any advertising, et cetera. That's just getting the book into audio.
Really? Yeah. It's interesting. I mean, it sounds like, the marketing from ACX is get on Facebook and tell everybody to buy your book, essentially.
Well, there's a lot of that, but I've been lucky enough to have a few of my books featured as the daily deal or included in a sale or two. And I know David has had that too, I believe. But I tell authors when they say, how do I advertise this? I'm like, look, your audiobook is just a platform. You don't advertise the audiobook. If you have a book up on Amazon, people who are audiobook listeners are going to see your book and they're going to find it. So just advertise your book and they'll choose whatever platform they want to listen to it on. You don't, if you release your book on Kobo, you don't do a marketing campaign for the Nook. No, it's just another platform, I think. David, you may disagree with me on that.
No, you're right. The best thing you can do, especially for audiobooks through ACX, and a lot of ours are WhisperSync. I don't know if you know what that is, but if it's WhisperSync ready, then you can buy the ebook for whatever price the ebook is, and you can get the audiobook companion very cheaply, and it'll let you on a Kindle swap back and forth. You can stop where you're listening and start reading, and the book knows where you're at. But the thing is, you can market your ebooks. You can do big promotions for your ebooks that lower the price, and then mention in all that marketing that, and when you get this cheap ebook, the audiobook is also cheap. I know people that just buy their audiobooks that way. They throw away the ebook, never download it, and just use that to get audiobooks cheaper.
I did that once. I've also noticed that when authors put their books up for cheap or even for free, and I used to rail against this, but when an author puts their book up for free, I see a big spike in sales of the audiobook version because audiobook buyers are different. They want the audiobook version.
They're willing to pay for it.
Yeah, exactly. When I was commuting to Microsoft, when I had the day job, I would listen to audiobooks voraciously every day. I never read ebooks. So the free or the cheap price tag didn't entice me to buy the ebook, but it got my eyeballs on their listing and I said, oh, well, that audiobook looks pretty cool. Maybe I'll check it out. And in my royalty share projects, I see a spike when that stuff, when other platforms go on sale.
There is a new newsletter site out there, and we just started trying it this week, but they're following on the line of BookBub, which is probably the best ebook marketing. And they're only going to market Audible and ACX audiobooks in a new weekly newsletter. You can pay, right now it's pretty cheap, and you pay to have your book in that weekly thing that blasts out to however many people.
Is that Audiovox?
Yeah.
Audiovox, yeah.
They just started up, and if it picks up and if they manage to build the list the way that BookBub is done, BookBub goes out to millions of people. So we can see spikes of thousands and thousands of sales in a couple days. And if that happens in any way for the audiobooks, it's going to be huge.
I've actually been toying with the idea of doing what Audiovox is doing, or BookBub is doing, or BookGorilla, any of the number ones, is doing a strictly audiobook one. I've been bouncing that around in my head, so maybe there will be another one.
Good luck with that.
Yeah, thank you.
Stephen J. Cohn asks, and this is sort of fits in with this. Will there ever be a real alternative to Amazon, the Amazon Audible distribution channel? Because I know from working with another publisher who was trying to do a series of books, and we worked together on it. It was like they basically cut him off. They said, "Well, we need this much money to do this," and are there any alternatives out there? Do you see any changes or any new distribution methods coming out?
There is some rumbling that. Well, right now, Audible is the main feeder of audiobooks to iTunes. There's some rumblings that contract is going to end, and Apple will start their own audiobook production company. I would find that interesting.
Wow.
Google Play also does their own audiobooks, but I don't know where they get their sources from. So, again, I'm not interested in biting the hand that feeds me, but competition is always good in the marketplace. So I would welcome some alternatives out there to see what happens.
Yeah. The problem with audiobooks as opposed to other books is that we can have our ebooks across every retailer on the planet. But with the audiobooks with ACX and Audible, our books aren't going anywhere else. As long as I do my books through ACX, that's where they're going. So even if Apple does do their own thing, then I would have to try looking at starting up an entirely parallel business running through Apple, and those books would only be on Apple. I hope that that's not the way the business is going. I wish that there was going to be a way where the Audible books could be more widely distributed if they're created on ACX. You can take the smaller royalty amount and distribute it any way you want, but Jeff and I have both tried other places. Simply Audiobooks was one, I think, and
Overdrive for libraries.
Overdrive for months and months and months and get $25 as opposed to even the 15% from Audible, kicking their butt. So you have to go with wherever the most of the sales are. And right now it's so hugely slanted towards Amazon.
Yeah, exactly. Ann Richardson asks, question for Jeffrey. What was the foot in the door for you with those big publishers?
Yeah.
What's your secret, Jeff?
The big publishers. So the question is, how do you get in bed with the big publishers?
I guess so.
Yeah. It's all about personal relationships. Go to APAC. Don't hand out business cards. Just meet people and talk to them. Have a beer with them. Follow up after the conference. Say, here's my demos. Have a large body of work already. I know that's kind of the catch-22. How do I get work without having work? How do I blah blah blah? ACX is a great way to get started. If you've got 50 books that are good quality audiobooks on ACX, you can use that as a portfolio. Make sure that your books are as good as the books that the company you are courting is is releasing every day. If you're doing what I call kitchen table recordings, ain't gonna cut it. So it's a slow process. I see a lot of people who are like, all right, I did 3 ACX books. How do I narrate for Penguin and Random House? I'm like, you're not going to unless you're super exceptionally talented. Other than that, it's a long road to hoe. You've got to go to APAC. You've got to meet people, go to mixers. The audiobook world, in terms of the traditional publishers, is still very much an old school publishing thing. It's all in New York for the most part, or at least it's based in New York. And it's very much the handshake and the schmoozing and the old school way of getting to know people. And it's about personal relationships. If you just send off an email to the head of casting at Blackstone or whatever, you're probably not even going to get a reply because they don't know who you are. And there's enough people out here who want to do this and are good and are reliable that they don't need to reply to you. And I know that sucks, and it sucks to hear that, but that's kind of the way it is. And in terms of your own introspection, ask yourself, what do you bring into the table that they can't get from Johnny Heller and Simon Vance and Scott Brick? Are you as good as them? You simply wanting to be as good as them isn't going to get you hired.
Absolutely. J. Christopher Dunn asks, Jeff, what's your method for pre-qualifying titles you're considering to produce? Quickly.
Sorry. Am I long-winded?
No, it's not. No, it's just we got a lot of questions here, and
there's no way to answer that quickly. There's any number of things. The single barometer you can do is emailing the author and saying, how many units per month are you selling on Kindle? If they say 1,000, do the royalty share book. If they don't answer, you've got your answer.
I like that.
So, it's a numbers game.
Reen Vogel asks, Karen, why is Audacity / a USB mic so bad? Is the quality that bad compared to the next step up? And what would be the next step up, please? Oh, sorry. Hang on. I think you're muted. I'm going to unmute you now. Say it. Start again. Gotcha.
I'm sorry.
Okay.
Whoops. I will freely admit to just having spoken colloquially when I said that. I don't know a lot about the microphone end of the business. I know about what comes in here, but from that end, I was just speaking as I have heard others say. Gotcha. So I'm not an engineer. I will freely admit that's not one of my skills. Mm-hmm. And these two fine gentlemen who are on my screen, at least bracketing me, would be the ones you want to ask that question to.
Well, I mean, I can tell you that in the right hands, a USB mic and Audacity, and in the right acoustical environment and a quiet room, with skill, can create a fantastic product. So, it's, and USB mics, what it defines a USB mic, the line is graying quickly. I'll have a video out eventually from NAMM show of a $600 USB mic made in Germany or Austria. That's going to blow your mind. So the line's starting to blur as to what that means. But if you're talking about an AT2020 USB or a Yeti for $120 and Audacity, yes, it can be done. with the right environment, quiet space, good acoustics, good mic technique, and all that stuff. It can be done. I mean, all of us have worked with all these folks. We know what's out there, what's being produced. Dan and I have heard hundreds, if not thousands, of studios. Yeah. It can be done. It's just a matter of there's a perception, and as a narrator, I don't think it matters. But to the rights holder, do they ever ask, Jeffrey?
No,
what equipment are you using? Do they ever ask you that?
Yeah. Actually, they do, because they want to make sure I'm not using a $5 Radio Shack karaoke mic.
Yeah,
that's the kind of analogy I was looking for.
Right,
that's fine. We can work with
that. So, but I don't. If you use Audacity and you make kick-ass audiobooks in Audacity, go ahead. Audacity is not going to record poor audio. It's all your DAW, your workstation software is all about your workflow. Whatever works for you.
Yeah.
As far as the software is concerned, it's all sound, and it's going to create WAV and MP3 files just as good as any other software. But you mentioned the room, and I think that's actually more important than the mic or anything else, because you could have a $3,000 Neumann, and if you're recording at your kitchen table, it's going to sound like crap. It's really going to sound like crap on a Neumann.
You're going to hear the fridge and things in the fridge.
Right.
Like ice makers.
Pickle jar.
Going to hear the pickles.
Definitely can add that you probably should not have your dog in the room at the time.
Snoring.
We've actually gotten audio files with dogs barking.
Mm-hmm.
I got a cat once. I was in the middle of a chapter, and it's like there's a quiet space where the guy was reading ahead, and it's meow.
That would happen in this house.
That is some quality stuff right there.
Yeah.
Dan.
It's always fun. Yes. Let's see here. The amazing Bill Lord asks, Jeff, now there's a lot of, well, it's terminology, but I know what it means. Generally speaking, what mix of per finished hour and royalty share do you keep in place? Can you talk about a hybrid deal where you get RS through ACX, but separate PFH rate from the author?
Yeah. So what he's talking about is instead of quoting, so not all royalty share titles are stipended, but you have the production costs of outsourcing to people like Karen. I don't want to pay for that out of my own pocket, because that gets me in the hole from the very beginning, and the royalty share may not earn that. So what you ask for is you say, hey, can you pay me a stipend, the author, $100 a finished hour, $152, whatever it is, the number that you're looking for. That looks a lot more enticing to an author than asking for $325 and no royalties. So the authors who want to do the royalty share, they're doing royalty share because they don't want to spit out $300 a finished hour, but they might be willing to pay $100 a finished hour to cover the production costs. That's the deal with the hybrid thing, and it's an unofficial. There's no mechanism on ACX to do that. That's all backroom dealing. Sounds negative, but it's all in the up and up. It's fine. It's side deal, whatever you want to do.
All righty.
We might have to do a speed round.
Yeah, really.
I'm way too wordy. Sorry.
No. I mean, it's because we've got like 10 or 12 more questions at least. And they're good questions. They're not.
Answer them all at the same time with all of us talking.
There you go.
They're not bad questions.
First in broadcasting.
There's just that much stuff to cover. It's a huge topic. Oh, yeah. Amy Fisher, can you actually make a living on royalty share? I think you answered that, Jeff. Didn't you say no?
You can if you have a large body of work that's selling really well.
Yes. If you cast or you cast your publisher or your rights holder correctly, so to speak. Right. Select your rights holders carefully. Yeah.
But I wouldn't quit your job.
Yeah.
In the hopes of trying to make a living on royalty share. I mean, I've got probably 40 or 50 royalty share books, and it's not enough to pay all the bills.
Yep. Reen Vogel asks, question for David. So if you have audiobook acting training but are just starting out, is it better to pursue a smaller publisher or start with ACX?
You're going to find most of the smaller publishers on ACX. I think ACX is a great place to start because besides everything else, when the book is done, if you find a reasonably competent publisher and you have good cover art, a book that's not horrifying, and you do a good job, then you're going to be up there right next to Simon Vance and all those other people on Audible. As far as a customer coming in, readers, they don't know that book came from ACX. So I think it's a wonderful place for people to start. And like Jeff said, you can build up that 20 or 30 book list there over time. That might be what you need to get in to the bigger houses. So, but I don't think pursuing a smaller publisher outside of ACX is going to produce a lot of books that nobody buys, in my experience anyway.
Okay.
Yeah. I'm taking notes here because I'm trying to figure out how to hone these down. But
yeah.
Reen says, so if you have audiobook acting training but are just starting out, is it better to pursue a smaller publisher or start with ACX?
I just did that.
Sorry, guys. See, that's what happens when I'm not listening and reading. I can't multitask that well. Devox says, so what are royalty share rates these days? What should we be asking or settling for?
Well,
there's no negotiation. It's 20%,
really.
and it's set by Audible. There is no negotiation.
That was easy. Reen. So how do y'all go about finding a good audiobook editor or proofer person? Karen, I'm sure you might have something to say about that.
Just call this gal here.
Well, you know, yes, you are more than welcome to call me. There's a lot of really good people out there. Honestly, I've seen a lot of people ask in the audiobook groups on Facebook because there is a really good network of people out there. Sometimes people have joked with me about why do I talk about my competition? I don't see it that way. There's so many narrators. There's so many audiobooks. I could work every hour of every day and not even come remotely close. So, but yeah, you want to look for somebody who's communicative, who pays attention to the details, who asks a lot of questions, who you feel, who you can feel comfortable with, because it is a trust relationship. Mm-hmm. You are trusting your production to someone else. And I understand that's really hard for some people.
It's really hard.
Sure.
Somebody else touching my stuff.
I've had people tell me that they were too embarrassed to give me their audio because they were afraid I wouldn't like the things they said when they made a mistake. I mean, it's, you want to look for somebody, sometimes that's someone in your own house. I've known people who've trained spouses and children and so forth as proofers or editors or whatever. But there's also a lot of good people out there who are, professionals at it, like myself. And like I said, you want to look for communication, ask around. There's a lot of people who will give recommendations of people that have done a good job with them, and that's how I've gotten a lot of work, is people being like, Karen is great. And then, so it's amazing. It's amazing how it's an amazing feeling to do that for somebody. I have to say that's one of the perks of my job, is to have somebody willing to put themselves out there for me. So I'm very grateful. I will
chime in for my wife, who was too bashful to be on the show tonight, apparently. But, I've watched her from afar or from very close sometimes work with audiobook narrators. And it is all about finding someone that you gel with. And the workflow. If you prefer someone that's like a get on the phone and you can just talk anytime kind of person, well, if that's what you're looking for, I hope you find them. Because if you find someone that doesn't like to work that way, you're not going to have a good time. If you like someone that has a really ironclad workflow, that's a real kind of machine, and you're willing to follow along and trust them that it's going to work, you may find, you might find it can be really efficient. I know with Amy, efficiency is a really, really big part of it. I mean, in her case, she's a mom. She is doing work for Edge Studio now, doing social media. She is doing audiobook proofing, editing, mastering, and she's a professional photographer running a photo business. So she's all about efficiency. So that's a big thing. Make sure they match your style.
I find I have to be pretty flexible, to tell you the truth.
Yeah.
I mean, there's so many different situations. People with, families and children and other jobs, and people who have to record at 4 a.m. because that's the only time they can get quiet enough. So sometimes you do have to, for me in my life, I do have to be pretty flexible. And sometimes that means pulling an all-nighter or an all-weekend or whatever just to get the product done, give my client what they need, you know?
Yeah, it's so true. Jeffrey, you created a spreadsheet listing a whole bunch of service providers.
I did. It's up on Facebook and the various narrator audiobook groups. I think it's pinned. I don't know. I can repost it.
It's
or
on
whatever.
the audiobook crowd. I know that.
Yeah,
that's the one I found it on.
Yeah, various narrators. You still got to do your due diligence because
a
lot of people just added themselves, which is fine.
Yeah.
But still do your due diligence. I claim no responsibility for the people that are up there.
It's a mad social science experiment, actually.
Exactly.
Is what that spreadsheet is.
I hear so many horror stories. I tell you, I've had people come to me and be like, I worked with this terrible editor who couldn't do their job. And I'm like, I'm really sorry. I'm glad we're working together.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, there are a bunch of people out there. I mean, it's going to be a growing business. If you got this many people doing it, you're going to have more people who are, can be doing editing. But Karen, it's a great suggestion. Training a spouse. You don't charge much, especially if they like to listen to audiobooks.
It depends. Yeah,
I don't listen to audiobooks outside of work. I will say that. No, thank you. Plenty all day, every day. So,
should we ask the question about Twisted Wave?
Yeah, we can ask that one. We're kind of running late on time here.
I know. This is the thing, guys. We have a lot more questions, and that just makes it sweeter the next time.
Absolutely.
We got to leave you wanting more because we got to let these guys eventually go because we're already
I'd like
running.
to eat dinner.
Yeah, we've already run
there is that.
We've already run way longer than usual. So we should probably cut it off there. But
All right. Last question here from Amy Cherney.
Yeah.
Would Twisted Wave not be an ideal digital audio workstation to record an audiobook with? If so, why? Don't see why not. I love Twisted Wave because it's incredibly reliable on Mac, and that's what I used when I was doing audiobooks because I could just roll through. There was never a glitch with it or anything like that, and it was easy to edit.
Yeah,
and and of course you got to be a Mac. Jeff, you said you use Reaper.
Mm-hmm. Which is both.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. It's Mac and Windows.
Yeah. And
Reaper, like Twisted Wave, is a very lightweight program, so it doesn't have it doesn't drag down your computer. It's not a massive download. Reaper is I think under 20 megabytes. It's tiny.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's really, really efficient. So anyway.
Yeah. It has a cool name.
And it has a cool name, Reaper, and it's Reaper as in you reap what you sow.
I always wondered about that name. Anyway, we're out of time for tonight. Well, we were about 20 minutes ago, but but that doesn't matter. But we've got a bunch more questions here. I think probably we'll do another session on audiobooks, and we'll carry some of these questions here. We actually will copy them down and put them into the show notes for another show.
Maybe we'll even do one of those nifty Twitter chats. Like all the kids seem to be doing those these days.
Boy, those can be interesting. I was in one that just turned into a volcano. But anyway, yes. So, but Jeff Kafer, thanks for being with us. David Wilson, good luck with all you're doing. Karen, always a wonderful pleasure to see you. And thanks for being with us tonight, guys.
My pleasure.
Thank you.
All
it's
right.
been a blast.
Thank you.
It's great to see all of you. All right. Well, we got to clean all this up, and we'll be right back after this quick message.
VoiceOver Extra, the voiceover industry's online news, education, and resource center 24/7. Hundreds, probably thousands of free how-to articles for voiceover success, ranging from home studio to voice acting to business. A free voiceover industry directory, calendar of industry events, resource links, a store, and much more. Bi-monthly webinars on all topics of voiceover, free subscriptions to newsletters, reports, announcements, daily news, and features at voiceoverextra.com.
Dad?
Yeah, honey?
When you watch East West Audio Body Shop, why do you keep hitting your forehead? And why do you keep yelling WTF? And what does WTF even mean?
Whiskey Tango Foxtrot. Yeah, that's what it means.
I think you made that up.
Girls, just go do your homework. Right now I'm watching George and Dan on EWABS.
Okay.
George and Dan. EWABS. They make our lives so much easier.
Oh, crap. What's wrong now?
And that's when the phone rings. like, I love that T-shirt of yours. I'm here because you broke something.
It's right. I wore it the other day, too. I love that shirt.
It's a great one.
Just sit back and relax. It's time for some announcements.
Oh, what a great show tonight. Well, it's going to be great next week, too, because George and I get to sit next to each other because I'm going to be out west for a couple of days.
Awesome.
Yes. So, warm that chair up for me. But we're going to have an interesting one, completely opposite of this. We're going to talk about broadcasting narration. Not exactly sure how we're going to get around that because that's the world I came from. But we've got a great guy. Thomas Pinto is going to be joining us. And we'll talk about how you do voiceover for broadcast. It's a little bit certainly different from audiobooks.
Yeah.
And certainly different from some of the other stuff we do. So that'll be interesting. You do not want to miss it. On March 9th, though, coming up in a couple of weeks, this is going to be one of the greatest shows of all time. We're going to do an international roundtable. We're going to have Jonathan Tilley coming from Germany. He's an American, but he lives in Germany. Debbie Barnes, who is in Oxford, England. Andy Boynes, who is in the same studio with Mehmet Anur in Turkey.
Sweet.
Yes, Rebecca Michaels Hall will join us from Italy, and Ramesh Matani, yes, from the Canary Islands, hopefully, and maybe Andy Curtis will join us from Australia. All at the same time. Can you dig it?
Awesome.
That's going to be, I can't wait just to hear the delay on that. That's going to be pretty cool. But we're going to do that early. We're going to do that noon Pacific time, 3:00 Eastern. So in the middle of your day, you can watch EWABS and see these people doing voiceover all over the world. I can't wait.
Well, seeing how hot of a topic audiobook certainly is, we'll definitely have another panel. We'll see if all of them will come back. Maybe we can welcome one or two other people on, and we'll do another audiobooks in April, I think. I think that would be a good time to do another one. So stay tuned. We got so many roundtable topics to cover on the show. We don't want to saturate with audiobooks, but and seeing how you guys love the topic, you guys came in droves tonight. We're going to focus on it again in the not too distant future, for sure.
Seems to be very popular. Mm-hmm. Also want to mention, I've got a webinar coming up on mic choice. We talked about it about an hour ago. It's going to be a fun one, talking about what different microphones are, what you use them for, and what's the best one for voiceover. Guys, we had 90 people watching this show at one time. Which we pay per person per hour
for a live show. Yeah, that's a lot of people. I think
that's a lot of people. We love it. We love having you here, but it ain't cheap. And if you could like to donate, it's very easy to do. Right above George's head there's a button that says donate. Right above show players. Click that. It goes right to PayPal. You don't have to give us a whole lot. Just a little bit every now and again. It helps. It keeps the show on the air.
It adds up.
Or over the wires or through the fiber optics, whatever it is that we call it.
We've got Eric Aragonian, Jeffrey Scott Chambers, and David Smith, and holy smokes. I mean, I can't even name them all. There's so many. Don Griffith, Amy Serency. I mean, gosh, Diana Birdsall, thank you, all of you. So many people are helping this show. And when Dan moves out here, we're going to put this money to good use, because we're really going to be able to set up a cool studio, upgrade some equipment, get new cameras. It's going to be sweet. And there'll be enough room in Dan's studio to seat a few people for live audience. So you get to hear what it sounds like when 5 people clap. It's going to be cool.
Right. And we'll be in Sherman Oaks, so we'll be able to drag people right over from Sherman Oaks and Studio City and Valley Village and North Hollywood and Glendale, all these places where all these people live. And they'll I'll just get on the 101 and go over to Dan's house.
Exactly.
That'll be cool. Can't wait.
NarratorHelper.com if you need some narrator helping. NarratorHelper.com.
Right. Show logs. Jack DeGalia. does them every week. They're fabulous. And there's a link to it right up top of the page. Everything you could possibly need is right on this webpage. So go into there and take a look at the show logs there. They're every little detail about the shows. Watch us on YouTube. If you miss a show, you can catch it on YouTube. Easy as pie. Just go to it's youtube.com, EWABS show with 2 S's, and that'll get you there. And, of course, the podcast, which you can get on.
This is a great episode for a podcast.
Oh, this is going to be a great one.
It's a really long one. So, it's a great reason why you might want to choose to listen to some of the shows instead of watch them from time to time, because when they get long, listen to it while you drive, mow the lawn, multitask.
Especially if you're alone in the car, because if someone really knows nothing about voiceover, it's like, what are you listening to? Anyway, like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter at EWABS_show, and of course, subscribe and like our videos. Go in there and like them like 5 or 6 times. Not that helps a whole lot. Anyway, do we have a package for the end here?
No, not yet.
Okay, well, in that case, we'll just thank our sponsors manually. Harlan Hogan, VoiceOver Extra Edge Studio. VoiceAm, got to get VoiceAm. And VoiceOver Atlanta, providing an uninterrupted live stream and bandwidth.
Hopefully, for most of you, you had I saw in the chat room some people had some glitches, and I apologize. It's kind of out of our hands, but we do our best on this end. And if you are tired of hearing the voices that you hear promoting the show at the top of the show,
do your own.
Send in yours. It's a cool way to practice doing a promo read. It's a cool way to practice doing working on your voice, and send in your clips. We'll edit them in from time to time. So that'd be fun. Send them in the ewabshop@gmail.com.
Absolutely. And got to thank the wives, especially tonight, because you're hungry, and mine, I can hear her breathing out just outside the door. I was like, school night, Kathy Curridon, our wonderful producer, for getting all these wonderful guests on here, which will be a lot of fun next week. And that international show, I can't wait for that. That's going to be different.
Yeah.
Because we're going to be sitting here going, well, how about this? That's right.
Yeah, I don't think it's good. No satellite, thank God.
It'll be interesting. Anthony Gettig, fabulous job in the chat room tonight, containing the chaos in there. That's the most questions I've ever seen in the out of the chat room.
Yeah.
Great job, Anthony. And Jack DeGolia, of course, for the show logs. Tim McKean from working on Essentials. We've got a bunch of Essentials in there. Go over to our YouTube channel and click on them. 4 or 5 minutes. Something important that you need for your business. And Lee Pinney for being Lee Pinney. And doing the podcast, of course.
And shooting my videos from the NAMM show.
Yep. Letting you be on camera with the mic.
I know. It's
doing what we call stand-ups.
Stand-ups. I get to do stand-ups for the first time in a long, pretty much ever.
All right. Well, this is the latest this show has ever gone.
This
so
is a
I am
record.
going to get an earful when I exit the studio here. So why don't we? Yeah, I know. Mugman. Well, we don't have any more Mugman for now. Jacob's working on a few more. But you can go to his webpage, by the way. Just go to mugman.net and check out his new webpage, which is really, really cool. And all the Mugman videos.
It's a trip, actually, yeah.
Yeah, so go check that out. Anyway, that's going to do it for us tonight. Finally, I'm Dan Leonard, still in the East.
I'm George Whittam, out here in the West.
And together we are East-West Audio Body Shop. Have a great week, everybody. We'll see you. I'll be in California next Monday night.
Cheers.
Bye.
You're listening to East-West Audio Body Shop.